All right, what's going on, guys? Sal here, back again. I'm going to be looking at just a breakdown, a position-by-position breakdown. Just going to discuss basically what I want to discuss on this video. I'll go from QB, running back, wide receiver to tight end, and just say some plays that I just have some data that I found about, or just anything that I'm interested in. I'd appreciate it if you guys have been here. If you could hit a like on this video, it helps the channel out. It helps more people get to be able to see the channel and the content that I'm putting out there. And if you could hit subscribe, that'd mean the world to me. I have a goal to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the week. It's lagging pretty much behind. I mean, it was a pretty bold goal. I had started with like 290, but I wanted to get there, right? So if you're just watching this video and you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. If you watched me before, or if this video is going to bring you any value throughout, I'd appreciate that. But for right now, we also have, if you look at my first look lineup, there's also, you can go watch that video and comment below, and once we hit 500 subscribers, there'll be a Millie Maker entry to one of the people who comment on that video who will score the most points tonight in the Thursday night showdown. If you're seeing this late, you could do for the Sunday main slate as well. But right now, let's just get into it, right? We're going to look position by position, week 10 slate. We're back to 11 games on this slate. Some people, the London game's kind of finishing up. Basically, we still have teams on bye, so once those teams get off, we have a 14-game slate. I like it when there's more players, I would say. When there's like 10 or 11 games, there's less players to choose from, right? So everybody's gravitating towards the same chalk in tournaments like Sutton, like more. It's harder to get differentiation from some of the plays that you think are good, and especially now with so much media being out there, so many people reporting, being in the fantasy world, DFS, so many models, people having access to this. It's harder to really find the value. It's almost like now you should actually go against what the model's saying because you'd be differentiating yourself that way. But regardless, I like when there's more games on the slate. Obviously, it's more fun to watch extra games, have more players involved, not as many people on buys in your standard leagues if you're playing standard leagues. But we have 11 games on this main slate, 22 teams going at it. Let's start at QB, and I'll just kind of go down and let you know what I'm thinking. So I have some notes here, so I might just like look off of them every so often just to make sure I'm hitting on all the players I wanted to. But I mean, just starting with Patty Mahomes, right? You got to talk about the guy who's 8 straight games with 300 plus yards. He ranks first, tied for first with that. He's in the top 10 in every statistical category to start your first 8 starts, and not going back to last year. For this year to start a season, he ranks top 10 in every single one of those statistical categories. But this week he's at home, where the Chiefs have been playing, I mean, exceptionally well either way, but they've had a higher point total at home, and it makes sense. But the thing that is different here is that he's a 16.5, 17.5, might close upwards of 18-point favorite at home, as he should be against the Cardinals. I think I like the Cardinals in this situation, and I'll get into that, just to cover the spread, not to win the game. So you might get a little bit of, is he actually going to be able to come through? Will they pull him in the second half? And this is the NFL, right? People don't get pulled in the second half. I think week 1 against the Bills, whatever the team was playing the Bills, I can't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, we can look at it right here. We go to Bills defense. Those starters got pulled, right? It might have been like the Chargers, Melvin Gordon, I want to say. Baltimore, 47-3. Okay, so Baltimore got pulled, and I think the Chargers started giving the ball to Ekeler in that second game against the Bills. That's the Bills. We've seen how bad of an offense they are. They can't score the ball. The Cardinals were like that. They were one of the slowest paced teams, the slowest paced team. They got a new offensive coordinator. We'll get into some of those stats and some of the things that I like from the new offensive coordinator. I don't think this is a game where the starters are going to get pulled. Sure, they might lean on Kareem Hunt, maybe even Spencer Ware a little bit more in the second half, but I think Patty Mahomes in the first half alone can go for 250 and 3 tutties, and then you can't really ask for too much more out of him after that, right? But this is going to be a classical game where they're supposed to be 17-point favorites. They're supposed to score 33 points. If they do all those things and he throws for 4 or 5 touchdowns, yeah, Kareem Hunt can still get his. He can catch a touchdown or 2, still get rushing yards. I think this is a game where you don't shy away from Patty Mahomes, who's going to continuously be under-owned around 10% in bigger, larger fields, especially this week since there's so much, since he's obviously priced up again, but there's also so much, I think, value at the QB position. Going next, we'll just look at Breeze. I'll highlight over Aaron Rodgers and just say that they're finally back at home. I think that they can get fixed at home. I think that there's some things, and I keep seeing as a Packers fan some beat writers posting videos of Rodgers just not even seeing like Devontae Adams wide open like twice against Gilmore. So Gilmore's a great corner, but I think Adams is just matchup proof, and that proves it. Adams only had like 6 for 40 and a touchdown in that Sunday night game, but he could have easily had over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, because Rodgers just didn't even see him twice wide open. We'll get into Drew Brees. So Drew Brees, the highest point total of the week, and that Chiefs total was the lowest one I think we've seen since week 1. I think it was 49, the over-under for that Chiefs total, and that's basically because they're saying Arizona's not going to score the ball, right? If it's a 17-point spread and the over-under is 49, you're saying that Arizona's going to score like 14 points, which is probably or very likely to happen, but again, I like Arizona a little more. I'm higher on them than others. Next, I'll just get into Drew Brees here. So we're looking at Drew Brees. Obviously, great game against the Rams, right? He's in a dome. If he's in warm weather or he's in a dome, he's going to be good. And he's vintage Drew Brees in the dome last week, right? He goes for 350 yards, 4 tutties. Just absolutely ridiculous game, 70% completion percentage. And you can see home and away splits. It's almost like beating a dead horse at this time. But you could honestly see, look, I mean, against the Giants, that's cold weather on the road, where he's going to be going in Cincinnati this week, probably playing in 30-degree weather at the 1 o'clock main slate game. 9 points. On the road in a dome, that's Atlanta, so he's in a dome. It's basically like playing at home for him. Did well, right? On the road against Baltimore, very good defense, but we've seen that defense getting torched in the last 3 weeks. Cold weather game 2 weeks ago, didn't do well. On the road against Minnesota, right? 7.8 points. That's in a dome as well, but didn't do well. So the splits are there, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that somebody has to be this scapegoat for home and away splits at the quarterback position, similar like to Big Ben. I don't know if this actually means anything. I'm sure that it does, since traveling actually does take a toll on the body, and you're just more comfortable when you're playing at home. This is a 54-point over-under, and I'm not too sold on that being the over-under, or at least it being as high totaled as like this was the same total as like last week with the Bucks and the Panthers. I'm not too sold on that, and I'll tell you why. Because one, Drew Brees and the whole Saints offense, because it goes through Drew Brees, like Michael Thomas, you can see he struggles on the road. That's one reason. And two, the other side of the ball, the Bengals, when we get there, I don't trust Andy Dalton to throw for more than 2 touchdowns in a game. Joe Mixon, although I do like him as a sneaky tournament play this week, I'll get into that. He's going up against the number 3 rated overall DVOA rush defense in the Saints. And obviously AJ Green's out. Tyler Boyd's going to have a good game, I would imagine. But who else do they have out there, right? I mean, no Tyler Eifert, no Gio Bernard. You're losing a lot of guys out there. They're saying John Ross is he's practicing, but on a limited basis. You're going to have Erickson out there. Like, who's going to actually get points on that side of the ball, especially if the Saints get up early and you can't really rely on Mixon as heavily. You're going to have to rely on Andy Dalton. I'm not sure that I see this being as high total. I think both offenses are good. The Bengals give up 319. They lead the league in giving up passing yards, 319.4. I got that stat from Ian Hartitz. Puts great content out on Twitter. Go check him out. Awesome. I think he's my favorite DFS person. 319.4 passing yards per game. So Drew Brees is going to obviously exploit their defense, just probably not as much as he would exploit it if it was at home, right? 54 is a high total. That's saying that both teams are going to be scoring like it's going to be like a 27 to or 30 to like 24 game. I'm not too sure. I think 30 to 24 is the exact spread because the Bengals are 6-point home underdog, which is interesting. So 30 to like 24 game. I'm not too sold that I could see the Bengals scoring that many points in this game with so many playmakers out. I think the Saints could, but again, on the road, you don't know how to do it with this team. So at 6,300, I'm not too high on Drew Brees this week. Higher definitely on Mahomes. The next guy that I'm going to go to, Matt Ryan, I'm not going to touch on anything really other than just say he's having an incredible year. Like, he continues. Last week, Washington's pass defense secondary, they got Glenn Dix, who I think is absolutely overrated, probably one of the most overrated players in the league. But I think he was phenomenal against them, right? He tore them up. He basically made them look like one of the worst secondaries in the league. Now they're saying that Washington has secondary problems, or maybe it was just Matt Ryan doing well. So I think that's definitely a sneaky play. Not too much I want to say about Jared Goff against Seattle. If Seattle can put up points like they did last time, Goff is a good play. I don't think that they could actually do that, especially on the road now. But the Rams secondary is terrible, right? Marcus Peters, again, he's been burned for 6 tutties this year, and he's bottom 12 in cornerbacks this year. I mean, there's some great cornerbacks that are just bottom of the league right now. Him being one of them, Malcolm Butler being another one of them, it's just terrible. Speaking of Malcolm Butler, Tom Brady going up against the Titans defense, which is actually really good, but Malcolm Butler, again, he's one of the worst cornerbacks in the league, giving up the most touchdowns at 7 touchdowns this year and 619 passing yards. That's insane. Like, that's absolutely terrible. Like, that one cornerback is giving that up for a team. Like, literally that whole side of the defense. So Josh Gordon time, like, we'll get there. I love him too. He's just incredible this year, or he's been incredibly bad this year. You could have your way with him. Here's probably my favorite play on the slate. I haven't looked at ownership yet. I'll probably check that out later today or maybe Friday when it gets a little bit clearer with injuries. Drew Brees. Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees is the guy that they traded away from there. Phillip Rivers is my favorite play probably on the slate. 6K, very affordable. He's going up against Oakland, who is the second worst pass defense in the entire league. Phillip Rivers last time against them, he had an 80% completion percentage. I think he went like 20 of 23. I mean, we can look at it right here, right? 22 of 27, 81%, 339 yards, 2 tutties, no interceptions. And he was just extremely efficient, obviously, because of the completion percentage. But this is a team in Oakland that's pass defense is absolutely atrocious. Rivers has just been solid all year. He's probably, honestly, like a top 10 MVP candidate. He's just been so low-key because of the year that Drew Brees is having, because of the year that Patrick Mahomes is just kind of outshining everybody this year having at the quarterback position. Oakland ranks dead last in pressure as well. So, I mean, just looking at my notes quick, dead last in pressure, which is something that we've known. They traded Khalil Mack, which makes no sense. They just gave up Bruce Irvin, which you probably could have got like a 5th or 4th or something for Bruce Irvin, right? He cleared waivers. I don't think anybody's picked him up yet. But they're 20. This is the stat right here. 24% of their defensive snaps, they get pressure on the quarterback. That's absolutely terrible. That's less than a quarter of the thing. So basically, for 76% of the snaps, the quarterback's sitting back there with a clean pocket, could have all the time in the world. The next closest team is 37% with the Colts. There's a 13-point gap from the worst to second worst in the league. That's nuts. I think Drew Brees is just literally going to stand back there all game, dumps him off to Melvin Gordon, dumps him off to Ezekiel Eckler last week. He didn't have a lot of play, but they only possessed the ball. It was a weird game script. It was like 24 minutes. They only possessed the ball last week against Seattle. Seattle likes to run the ball, so that makes a lot of sense. So don't look too much into that. I think he's still going to get his 8 to 12 plays a game. But again, it's only like 8 to 12 plays a game. But I think this is a huge week for literally everybody on this Chargers team. Again, this is probably going to be like a chalky play because everybody just saw the 49ers and Nick Mullins destroy this Chargers defense. But I think the defense is literally that bad. Like, you get no pressure and you're second worst in the passing game behind the Bengals that we just mentioned. You have no playmakers on that defense. Like, who's going to stop them? It's 10-point. The only downside is they're 10-point favorites in this game. So I think obviously that helps Melvin Gordon and Eckler. But does that take away a little bit from Rivers? Will he throw a little bit less? I don't really look into that too much. Because again, the NFL, nobody's going to really be sitting players, and I think these games can stay within like a touchdown or 7 or 3 points the whole game, and then later on in the fourth quarter they score a touchdown, cover that spread like we see a lot of times. Especially this is, again, they're not traveling a lot. They're going from Los Angeles to Oakland, which is literally, I was in California this summer. It's nothing. You could get there on a bus ride in like 4 hours. So it's really nothing at all. So again, love Rivers this week. Highlight on a couple other guys quickly so we can move on and not make this video like an hour for you guys. Mitch Trubisky, I like him this week. He's playing in the slowest paced game of the week between Detroit, who just plays just awfully slow. They used to be one of the most fast-paced teams, throwing the ball everywhere. Now they're just awfully slow. I don't know what's going on with Matt Stafford this year, but I like Trubisky if this game stays close because Trubisky has that rushing upside that we continue to see. Didn't use it last week because really he didn't need to use it last week, right? They handed the ball off to Jordan Howard more than they have been used to handing the ball off to Jordan Howard. They had 2 defensive touchdowns, so really whenever Trubisky was on the field, it was just basically let's hand the ball off, get off the field, let our defense go score another touchdown, right? That's how bad Nate Peterman is. Worst quarterback in the league. I don't know why they keep putting him out there. I almost feel bad for him, but worst quarterback in the history of the NFL based on QBR. I like him because of his upside to run the ball, and Detroit has a very bad rush defense, as we've seen. Even with Snacks out there, it hasn't improved much in the last 2 weeks. When Snacks is on the field, we see the splits being a little bit better than obviously when he hasn't been on the field, and that makes sense because he's an elite pass rush or an elite run-stop player. But it's still, he's not carrying that whole defense to a spot where it's like, okay, now we can't play players against them. Like Trubisky in that situation as a sneaky play, people are going to come off of him basically because they'll see this 9 and this 21, the 9 burger last week. But his defense scored 2 tutties. That's probably not going to happen this week. Love Andrew Luck. I think Jacksonville's defense. Look, Jalen Ramsey was like the top cornerback in PFF last year. He's ranked 37 this year, and he's the best cornerback on that team. I think Luck could have his way in this game, right? He's at home against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's defense has been torn apart. If Fournette comes back, which it seems like he's going to, I think that could help if they could run the ball and keep the defense off the field to kind of stay sharp, limit the amount of plays. But Luck's going to throw the ball probably like, what, 45 times? This is the second fastest paced game of the week, which means that they're going to run the second most plays of the week. So I think that this is a game where Luck's probably going to, again, throw the ball 45 times. And against this defense, I take my chances with Luck. T.Y. Hilton back and healthy. Marlon Mack's going to be back and healthy. Most likely he's been practicing. I like Luck this week as a sneaky GPP play. He's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks of the year as far as throwing the ball and getting passing yards and touchdowns. Lastly, we'll touch on Baker Mayfield. Actually, 2 more guys quick. Baker Mayfield, just because he has a great matchup at home against Atlanta, giving up some of the top 5 basically worst defense in every passing category and almost every rushing category as well. So if Baker can't get it done this week, when will he? Second week with a new offensive coordinator. We'll see what he could do against. Last week, the Chiefs were a terrible pass defense as well, right? A little better against the pass than the run, so they kind of leaned on the run. They got Nick Chubb the ball like say 18 times, whatever it was. 20 times. Let's see what Nick Chubb had last week. In a game where they were basically never had a chance to win that game. Like, they were always down in that game. And he still got the ball 22 times. He's averaging like 18.5 carries a game, and his team's been trailing. Imagine if they actually get up. But he's very touchdown dependent, but we'll get to that. Lastly, Josh Rosen. So this is definitely just... I don't know what the ownership is going to be on Rosen. I'm going to guess it's going to be low. They're 16-point underdogs. They're going to have to throw the ball, right? I don't like playing quarterbacks on either side of the ball, but I've already mentioned Rivers has a unique situation this week. Kind of like Rosen at 4,800, right? Sneaky play. Not a lot of people are going to play this guy at all. He's in an offense where he had the quickest release time last week that he's had ever in his career, even going back to college. So obviously they're getting the ball out a lot quicker. They're going to be running more plays a game. David Johnson's starting to get active in the passing game. They actually got the ball to Larry Fitch. They got some targets going. They ran Ricky Seals-Jones, their athletic big tight end. They ran him the most that they ever have run him in his career. So I think Josh Rosen is a sneaky play this week against the defense that, yes, the Chiefs are better at home. They give up 16 points per game at home. On the road, they give up like 24 points per game. It's a huge split, right? And it's because they're playing a little bit worse teams when they're at home. And I guess their defense just gets up for the game. Excuse me, I literally just burped on camera, didn't even think about it. Excuse me. But I think Josh Rosen is just a sneaky play. He's obviously not a game breaker, but last week, 20 points against, in a game where they had a new offensive coordinator on 1 week to get the stuff figured out. Now they have a whole nother week. Josh Rosen's going to throw the ball probably a little bit more. Threw the ball 40 times in that game. Probably going to have to throw the ball 45 times in this game, 50 times maybe even, if they want to even keep it close. So I don't hate Josh Rosen in this situation. I think pairing him with both of his wide receivers, tight end, whatever it might be in that offense is a sneaky play. Let's flip these notes and let's get over to these running backs. Todd Gurley, obviously, last time he went for 113 yards and 3 tutties against this Seattle front. It's not that great. He's at home now. He's obviously always a great play. Like, play him if you can, right? Like, play Todd Gurley if you can. Last week, he finally had his floor game of 20 points. Cost some people because they paid up at $9,500. I think he's going to have more than that this week. Play him if you can. They were trailing a lot in that game. He probably would have had over 30, way over 30 if they were anywhere in the position not to throw the ball the whole second, third, and beginning of the fourth quarter, right? Melvin Gordon, I think he's my favorite play of the week from a running back position if you want to pay up for one of these guys that you want to pay up for in these 8,500 or plus range, or you can include Joe Mixon in that range as well. Melvin Gordon, again, 10-point favorites against Oakland, who's been terrible in all facets of the game. Melvin Gordon came right back and did exactly what Melvin Gordon's been doing all year. He produced his floor game, really, of 22 points. But he had over 100 yards, 1 touchdown. Didn't get active in the receiving game. I think that's going to change again. Backs have had their way with this Oakland team. I like Melvin Gordon a lot. Kareem Hunt, you could say what you want about Kareem Hunt. He's been controlling those backfields about 62 to 38% now in the past 2 weeks with Mark Ingram back. Not Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara. I'm not going to get too much into that. Kareem Hunt, I do like, again, huge home favorite. I think that he's a guy who can probably be the most favorable player in this entire matchup. But at 8,500, it's a risk if they do get up big and give the ball to Spencer Ware a little bit, which they've been trying to do in previous games where they've been blowing teams out. Joe Mixon's a guy I want to touch on. I think he's a sneaky GPP play. People are going to stay away from him because of this right here, 5th. The Saints are actually 3rd in DVOA, defensive, just adjusted, right? The adjusted average, defensive average, adjusted average game for defenses right there. So Joe Mixon, he has a tough matchup, right? But he gets work in the passing game. Again, it's a high point total. I personally don't like this play overall, but I think it's a sneaky GPP play because at his price at $7,700, everybody's going to want these 4 guys, right? If you can get up to these 2, they want them, or you're going to go down to somewhere in this range right here. I think he's in a sneaky spot where not a lot of people are going to touch him, as I do with James White. I don't really have much to say about James White, though. I don't think I'm going to play him against Tennessee. David Johnson, interesting play. 6,800, so I think he's too expensive for me this week. But David Johnson ran the most routes that he did ever this year and ever that he has in the past year and a half at 30 routes. Like, let your man run out of the slot. Let him run. That's what Leftwich did. He ran 30 routes. He only had 4 catches, I think, but that's obviously going to change in another week. I think he's going to get more work out there. So he ran 30 routes last week, right? The Chiefs are dead last in defensive rushing, right? DVOA against the rush. They're literally dead last in that. So, yeah, he's 16.5-point underdog. But early in the game, if this man can get going, he can keep the game a little bit close, keep Patty Mahomes off the field. You have to think about game script, right? I talked about that in the Thursday night video. Think about game script in this game. They're 16.5-point underdogs. They know that they're huge underdogs. They're probably going to have to throw the ball at some point in the game. You can't keep up with the Chiefs' offense just running the ball, right? The Chiefs can score like that. But I think David Johnson's ability to catch the ball in the passing game now, 30 routes run, right? They're going to eventually start looking at him, and they're going to probably be throwing the ball 10 more times this game at least, which probably gives David Johnson probably another 10 routes run, right? So I like David Johnson, but the price is just a little bit too much for me. They actually got this right? 30 seconds against the run. That's actually right. A lot of these are off. I don't know what they use at DraftKings, but 6,800 is a lot. If he was closer to 6,000 range, 5,000 he's definitely playing. 6,800, so that's a lot. Leonard Fournette I like, again, as a tournament play. He's sneaky. If he's going to play, he's going to get all the work, right? They spent the fourth overall pick on him. The way that the Jaguars were good last year was literally handing the ball to Fournette 25 times a game, keep the defense off the field, keep them sharp so when they go on the field, they can produce a turnover, a 3-and-out, and then give the ball right back to Fournette. If they get anywhere within the 5-yard line, Fournette's going to probably touch the ball 2 out of those 3. If they go 4 times, probably 75% of the touches inside the 5-yard line are going to go to Fournette. Makes Bortles actually has better splits with Fournette off the field, but I think that's slowly come down as he's been off the field more because Bortles has been exposed a little bit more. But Fournette is definitely a sneaky tournament play, not somebody in cash, but at 6,300, nobody's going to play Fournette this week, right? Again, he's in that range where you're going to pay up, or you're going to come right down past Fournette, and you're probably going to look in this range, or you're going to go even a layer down, and you're going to look in this range right here where these three guys are, or lower. So that's where that is. Nick Chubb, he's been controlling again. His whole team was down. His whole team was down that entire game. He still got 22 carries on the ground. Got some work in the passing game, but Duke Johnson basically controlled it. But he's had 18.4 touches in the past 30 weeks. He's controlled 84% of the market share in that backfield. So even though Duke Johnson got some passing yards, that's all he's getting. Duke Johnson didn't get any activity in the running game. So I think Nick Chubb's a sneaky play, especially against a terrible bottom three run defense in Atlanta. Again, this is a situation where Duke Johnson can be on the field a lot more this week, but that's not how it's been the past 3 weeks, especially since we had last week with the new offensive coordinator, and they still didn't change that. They fed Chubb 22 times in a game. They were trailing by so much, but Chubb is completely touchdown dependent because of that. So if he can get over 100 yards, that'd be nice. But again, if he doesn't get a touchdown in these 2 weeks right here, he's basically a 9-point guy, and he gets you nothing, right? You can't have that in cash. Can't have that. Well, you can survive that in cash, but in tournaments, that's going to hurt. AP is another guy I want to talk about. I had a comment that basically said, like, you're off AP because he had a bad game last week. And let me just kind of explain that. I'm not off AP because he had a bad game last week, right? I'm off AP for a few actually good calculated reasons. And I answered it this way, too. So, look, AP is good when he gets the ball 22 plus times. 26 times here. He had the ball 19 times here, so I'll give him that. But he basically has to average 23 touches, we could say, out of all these, 26, 26, 24, 19. So 23 touches this man has to average to have a good game. That doesn't mean if he gets 23 he's going to have a good game. It just means that most likely his team's leading and they're actually going to have a positive game script. But he's very game script dependent. Like, if Tampa Bay gets up, which is possible at home in a game where they have a good offense, if Tampa Bay gets up in this game flow scenario, 7-0, 10-0. AP's done. Like, Chris Thompson, if he's healthy, he's coming in. Capri Bibbs. AP is done. AP is going to have a 10-carry game or even a 17-carry game for 97 yards. Even if he has a decent game where his team's leading the game, right? 17 carries, 97 yards. He still only gets you 9 points because he's so touchdown and 100-yard bonus dependent. I said that AP needs to get you over 100 yards. He has to get you closer to 2 touchdowns a game, right? If he gets you 120 yards even, and he only has 1 touchdown, that's 18 points. That's pretty decent for cash, right? But in a tournament, to pay for a guy at 5,700 who has a good amount of risk, I would say, because he literally has to get you that type of game, which is a good game, which, yes, AP can get them, but how often can he get them? Only in games where his team is ahead. I don't think his team is going to be ahead this week against Tampa. I think that Washington secondary is a little weaker than a lot of people think it is. Swearinger is good. I don't think Clinton Dix, again, is good. And I think Tampa can expose them, right? At home, I think Tampa can expose them. That's why I don't like AP, because he has no work in the passing game. He caught a fluke touchdown the past week, and now he's biting me here because he had 3 catches in the past week, but that's just because Chris Thompson was out, and he got a little bit more work in those passing games. So I don't like AP because he's too risky for me in cash, and in tournaments. I was on him 2 weeks ago, and it basically seems like the weeks that he's supposed to go off, he doesn't go off. The weeks that he's not, he goes off. So play him this week because he'll probably go off, but I'm not on him. A couple other guys I'll just highlight. Aaron Jones, I think, is about to break out. He's just controlling the backfield way more now, like 67% of the touches in the past 2 weeks. He even with the fumble last week, his team was down in the whole fourth quarter, but he was playing great, right? He basically had like 13 carries for 72 yards, I think, before that fumble, and they were going into the red zone. He would have been over 100 yards, no doubt in my mind, if he doesn't fumble that ball and they stay basically tied or ahead in that game. I think this is the week that he could break out against a Miami front that's not the greatest run stop at home. They want to get right Green Bay. They're going to throw the ball, sure. No Allison this week. They're going to continue to throw the ball. Xavier Howard against Devontae Adams doesn't scare me, but I like Aaron Jones to get a lot of work this week. Duke Johnson, I like him against Atlanta. I'll just say that right out front. I think Duke Johnson's going to get a lot of work against Atlanta in the passing game, probably upwards of 10 catches against his team because he's literally the Christian McCaffrey back and the Alvin Kamara back. Just probably the poor man's, but he still has that same upside against a defense like Atlanta. Deion Lewis is going to be the chalk of the week, I think, in my opinion. He's going to be complete chalk this week, and I don't think should be the case. I'm probably going to pivot off of him. Might play a little bit of him. Mike Davis, I think, is a good play. I think over Rashad Penny, if indeed we do see that, they end up ruling out Chris Carson, which in the postgame they said he wasn't going to practice all week, so it seems like he will be ruled out. Lastly, who I want to touch on for running backs, Elijah McGuire, right? Going up against Buffalo in a game where the Jets can easily get up big. Buffalo doesn't score a lot of points, so it's not like this is going to be a negative game script. McGuire came right back and had 55% of the snaps, right? 55% of the snaps after not playing a snap all year shows basically what they think of Isaiah Crowell. Isaiah Crowell only played like 35% of the snaps. Cannon had like 10, whatever it was. Isaiah Crowell's not the future. Cannon's probably not the future. They like this McGuire guy. He did great last year. I think he's a sneaky GPP play. And that's how I'll basically close it on the running backs. All right, so wide receiver time. My man, Julio Jones. I love playing this guy in tournaments, especially when he's like 5% owned like last week. Get you 28 points. It's just, the man's had a phenomenal stretch of games, right? Over 100 yards. He leads the league in air yards at over 1,200. It was John Brown for a lot of the season. Now it's Julio Jones. Just an absolute stud. I don't think the rookie stands a chance against him this week out of Ohio State. He's got like 5 inches on him and like 60 pounds on him. I think Julio Jones has a pretty decent week this week. But again, he has no catches in the red zone this year, so that's definitely worrisome. Michael Thomas, I like a lot against Cincinnati, but it all depends on what they're going to do outdoors, right? So obviously he's going outdoors where their offense has struggled. On the road where the offense has struggled. Had an incredible game last week with the phone. It was very good. Bengals giving up that 319 passing yards a game. I love Michael Thomas this week, especially with Dez Bryant there. Yes, you can't play him in DFS, but that's going to take some coverage off Michael Thomas. Nobody double teams in the NFL anymore. Like, yeah, they double team Julio maybe sometimes when he's in the red zone, and Gronk they used to double team, but nobody double teams. Calvin Johnson I got double team too as well, but nobody double teams. When they double team him, it's on like 10% of the plays, right? Devontae Adams is matchup proof. You can play him if you want. I love Devontae Adams. He's matchup proof. Nobody can stop him, right? Gilmore didn't stop him last week. He burned him like 5 times. Rodgers just didn't see him. He still had 640 and a touchdown. Tyler Boyd's obviously going to be a chalky play this week at his price. He's priced up. AJ Green out. I think he's a good play, right? People can say that they're going to throw coverage his way. If he gets P.J. Williams in the slot where he should be, unless we get other reports, he's going to have a great game. I think he's going to get 15 targets in this game, right? I really do. I think he's going to get 15 targets because who else are going to throw the ball to in a game that's a high total? Even if they put Marshawn Lattimore on him, he's still quarterback's passer rating's over 100 against Marshawn Lattimore too, so that doesn't scare me at all. I think Boyd's a great play. The guy I love the most, again, another Oakland guy, is Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen, again, second worst pass defense is Oakland. Keenan Allen's second half of the year is just absolutely incredible compared to his first half of the year in his career. His first half of the year, he's averaging like 15 fantasy points per game. Second half, he's averaging like 23 fantasy points a game. Averaging 23. That's nuts. That means that he definitely has games where he's going for 30 points. He started that last week, second half of the year, a journey for him. Right here, right? 24 points. He got some rushing work. He's still got 10 targets. I think he's going to do great this week. I love Keenan Allen this week. Probably my favorite play in a spot where people are either going to go up for these guys, especially like Boyd for only a little bit more, or they're going to go down into this Rams range. Rams wide receivers, I really don't know what's going on every single week with them. Cooks is the most upside. Woods is the safest. Kupp's the guy who's probably going to score the TD, right? That's how I break it down. Landry, I said that we had number 1 was Julio Jones in passing yards or air yards. Landry's top 5, right? He's just not converting these targets. He's not getting into the end zone. I think that can change this week in a great matchup. He's the cheapest he's been, I think, since week 1, right? Yes, since week 1, he's the cheapest he's been. He's still getting all the targets out there. He's had 7 targets with this new offense. They said they want to get him the ball more. Going up against Atlanta, I think this is a week where nobody's going to play him because he's basically burnt people every single week except this week, right? He's burnt you every single week if you played him in the past like 5 weeks except for 1, and he's been hyped for a lot, so I think he's going to have low ownership. Josh Gordon against Malcolm Butler. Butler, like I said, he's given up over 600 passing yards. He's at like 30 here. I have like the stat literally right here. Josh Gordon. Butler is allowing 618 yards on 39 of 54 completions and 7 TDs. Josh Gordon can have his way with Malcolm Butler. I like Josh Gordon this week at that price. It's getting loud out there. These construction guys are nuts. They start like 5 now. It's absolutely ridiculous. T.Y. Hilton, I think he, in his 2 games against Ramsey's dominated him, but Ramsey's not as good this year. At least it doesn't seem like he's as good this year. I think Hilton's a sneaky play at 5,700. I don't think I want to play him against Ramsey still, though. I do think Ramsey's better than the 32nd ranked player in the league, but again, I'm not like diving too deep into PFF. But I think he's a sneaky play here. Get down into a couple more wide receivers I want to talk about. Galladay has had, I saw Ian Hartitz also put out, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Galladay, in his career, Matthew Stafford has had the best numbers when targeting Galladay. It's like 11 yards per attempt. Better than Golden Tate, better than Calvin Johnson, better than Marvin Jones. Jones is up there. I think Jones was number 2. But this is just such a slow-paced game, right? I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. They play so slow in these games. I do like Galladay over Marvin Jones, though. This is the guy I want to look at. Scantling. He's going to be chalk, right? Oh. Celery. Scanling's going to be chalk this week. I guarantee it. Allison's out, so he's going to be starting, right? He's had a touch in his 4 starts. Scantling has had either a touchdown or over 100 yards, right? I mean, look at this right here. He's had double digits, right? Touchdown, 7. That was his first start in Detroit. Started here, 100 yards. Started here, 100 yards. Right, he catches the big play. The Dolphins are second in giving up explosive plays, right? They've given up 20-plus yard plays. They're second worst at doing that. And Scantling, 7 of his 17 catches have been for over 20 yards. So it seems like something is a perfect storm here. No Allison. He's going to be playing probably the majority of the snaps, upwards of 80% of the snaps, and 2 wide receiver sets he'll be out there, 3 wide receiver sets he'll be out there. He's riskier because he only catches a jump ball, so he might only have like 3 yards, or at least that's what he's been doing. I mean, that week against Detroit, he caught everything, right? Small passes, crossing routes. But I think this is a week where he can actually go for 100 yards on like 7 catches and a touchdown. I think that's very viable. I think this is a week where you can stack like an Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Scantling game, because they're back at home. They've had so much doubt. I hate Mike McCarthy, but one thing that he's good at is when his team's back against the wall, he comes out and he performs, right? Whether it's the playoffs against Arizona a few years back where Rodgers had the Hail Marys. They were like the highest he was an underdog until that point. Whether it's against the Rams when they're huge underdogs. They should have won that game. When it was run the table time. I think that they're going to have a good game overall, or a good team game. Getting down in here, there's not really much I want to talk about. Obviously, there's a lot of players in this range that you could talk about and discuss. Corey Davis, I think, could be some chalk. Don't want to play him against Gilmore, but he could be a pivot off of Dion Lewis if Lewis ends up being highly owned. Tyrell Williams, I like a lot. I want to discuss this over Mike Williams. Tyrell Williams ran the most routes last week at 47, more than Keenan Allen, who had 45. Mike Williams only had 15. Mike Williams comes on and he runs deep routes, right? That's going to regress. Tyrell Williams' touchdowns, deep touchdowns are going to regress as well. But if we're talking Tyrell or Mike in this situation, they both have good matchups. If you want to go like a whole game stack, literally Melvin Gordon, Rivers, Tyrell, and Keenan Allen, you can. Might be something to look into. Look at this. Limited targets, right? But he just catches the deep ball. So if you want to play one of these guys who catches it, it's him because he's on for 47% of the snaps, and he's pretty cheap. Coming down a little bit more, I heard that Cordell Patterson on ESPN was a running back now. That's interesting because Sony Michel's coming back. I don't think that's actually going to be in play anymore. John Ross might play. If he plays, it's a good matchup against the number 2 cornerback out there, Eli Apple. Don't hate it at all at 3,900 as a punt play. 3,900 I love, and he's going to be highly owned. Maurice Harris, he's going to be ridiculously highly owned this week because of what he did last week. But they've been saying they want to get him the ball more. Tampa Bay is god-awful against slot receivers. And Richardson's out, right? So I think it's a perfect storm for Harris this week. At that low price of 3,900, I thought he should have been in the 4Ks. He's basically right there. I like him a lot. Other value just to kind of look at if you'd like to look at it. Robbie Anderson's a decent value play now that we have Josh McCown, who's been great with Robbie Anderson in his career, going deep. Yes, he has a tough matchup against Tre'Davious White, but Anderson has scored against White before last year. He had a decent game against White. So I don't hate Josh McCown upgrade. Definitely, I think it's an upgrade over Sam Darnold, at least in this point. They both play in awful offenses and awful schemes. I don't think Darnold's as bad as his coaching is. Makes him, at least. Another guy who's interesting is Tyjon Sharp. Bad game last game, right? Didn't really do anything. A lot of people had him. I had him in one captain spot, had him in a couple of lineups. Did bad. I think at 3,600, though, he's worth a look for a guy who can do this for you, right? He could do this. Obviously, that's probably an outlier based on what he's done. But at this point, I think it's worth a look since he won't probably get the Gilmore treatment. That'll be more of Corey Davis. That's all I want to really talk about other than Erickson. You can watch out if they report that Erickson's going to be in the slot, stereotypical like slot receiver guy. I don't know if he'll be even worth a play for me because I still think Boyd just all the points right there and some mix in. But Erickson could be a sneaky play at that range. I think he could end up being higher owned than he should be, though. Tight ends, there's not much to say other than that I like. For a value play, I want to play Travis Kelce every week. Like, these tight ends, the prices have adjusted, right? O.J. Howard's now expensive compared to the rest of the tight ends. Don't want to play Jared Cook. Jimmy Graham just is super inconsistent, right? He's a guy who's super inconsistent. You don't know what he's going to throw up there. And I don't want to pay up for 4,600 for a guy who, with the upside of only 12 points and the downside of literally 3. Every time I look at tight ends, it's like I either want to play Kelce, O.J. Howard, or Njoku. Or Ertz if he's on the slate, but he's not on the slate. But if we want to go a little bit cheaper and just look, love Ricky Seals-Jones. He ran the most routes, like I said, in his career at 37 routes the past week. I love him this week in a game where they're going to be passing the ball. I like a sneaky stack of like a Josh Rosen. Or you can go the other way around and you can go Patty Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Ricky Seals-Jones, Larry Fitzgerald. You can do like a game stack that way. I like this game as a sneaky little game stack spot. Other than that, though, tight ends, I'm not looking too much. I think Burton is just touchdown equity upside. I think he's going to start to regress. As you can see here, he's had 5 touchdowns on the year. He's a good red zone target, but he has limited targets that he's turning into touchdowns. So I think that's going to regress. Jordan Reed's a tricky guy because they're keeping him healthy. They figured out how to keep this guy healthy, just like literally don't play the guy. I heard that earlier this week in one podcast. It was funny. But he's the only guy out there now without Richardson, right? It's him and Harris, really. I mean, Doxson hasn't seen 50 yards in a game this year, so I don't really like Doxson. Jordan Reed eventually is going to have to come together. He has a good matchup against Tampa Bay. Not too much I want to say about tight ends. I haven't really looked into it too deeply, and it's really because I love playing Njoku, I love playing Howard, and this week I like Ricky Seals-Jones. that's all I got. I'm not really going to go into the defenses. I don't really look too deep into them. I see what I have left over at my salary. Obviously, you want to play guys against Buffalo. They're averaging 16 points a game this year, the defenses. In the last 4, they've had 19.8 or more, I believe, fantasy points. The Jets are definitely capable to do that. They have a decent defense, and I think is Anderson or Josh Allen starting? Whoever's starting doesn't matter. They don't have the playmakers out there. But that's all I'm going to talk about, right? So those are some of the plays that I like this week. We have that Thursday night showdown slate tonight. I'm excited because it's actually a good game. I'm going to get to watch some of it. But if you're at this point in the video, if you can hit that like button, please and thank you. I ask from you. And if you could hit the subscribe button. So if you watch this far into the video, I know a limited amount of people actually watch like exactly. This is now like closer to 40 minutes. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button right in the bottom corner. It helps me. I want to get to my goal of 500. Eventually get to my goal of 4 figures of 1,000 subscribers. The more people that watch this, is I know the better the content that I'm putting out. So I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe. Drop a comment below. What is something that I said that maybe triggered you, you didn't agree with? Somebody that I missed that I should have talked about? I'm basically just talking about the guys that stick out to me and that I've seen or looked up some stats about. So obviously can't talk about every single player on the slate. There's great plays. Like I didn't spend in-depth time on Todd Gurley, but he's obviously a great play. I didn't spend in-depth time on maybe some of the sleepers that you want to talk about, but you could drop that comment below and I'll discuss some stuff with you guys. I appreciate the continued support. Good luck this weekend. Good luck tonight. Hopefully, if I don't, one of you guys takes down that showdown slate and doesn't split it with 500 of your friends. You get to take the whole 250K. Have a good night with it. But have a good weekend, everybody. Good luck this weekend. My name's Sal. Be good. Good luck. Peace.